And here with me now, Democratic Congressman from Pennsylvania, Chris Deluzio. He's an Iraq War veteran and a member of the Armed Services Committee. And Congressman, you were one of those co-sponsors to that bipartisan War Powers resolution, saying it is the responsibility of Congress to authorize declaring war. The president did not get authorization before launching these strikes on Iran. What is your reaction to where we stand right now?
Congress didn't authorize this. No president of any party has the ability on their own to start a war. Sending American aircraft over another country, dropping bombs, that's risking starting a war. And certainly the Congress has a role to play. I hope more of my Republican colleagues join us to stand up for the American people. I'm a veteran of the war in Iraq. I remember what that debate was. At least there was a debate. I think they got it wrong then. We've had no chance to have a debate, to present evidence to the American people, to see the case the administration's making for why they should authorize these strikes. Congress has that power. Congress alone has that power.
I mean, this is your second term in Congress, but we've seen for decades, multiple administrations, presidents from both parties skirt going to Congress before launching some kind of military action. Is this any different?
I think it's the same problem we're seeing now happen with this president we've seen across generations.
Why do you think that is, that presidents don't feel like they need to come to Congress?
I think it's been too easy. They've been relying on an authorization going back to 2001 against al-Qaeda to launch strikes for years, well beyond what Congress had intended. The American people should have more of a say in this. And look, we are going to pay for the cost of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan for as long as my generation of veterans is alive. We owe it to the American people to make these decisions wisely, to argue in full public view about the merits of starting a war. None of that has happened. This president decided on his own. And it is Congress's responsibility to decide whether we send Americans to war. Your
colleague, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, said President Trump's actions in Iran could be an impeachable offense. Do you agree?
They could be. I think he broke the Constitution. Let's be clear. It is Congress's power, through the American people who elect us, to decide whether we go to war, whether we authorize military action. Every president has the power to defend Americans, no doubt. That's not what this was. This was an offensive attack on another country.
Our colleague, Kristen Welker, actually asked the vice president directly about whether this was the U.S. declaring war on Iran. Take a listen.
My first question, Mr. Vice President, is the United States now at war with Iran?
No, Kristen, we're not at war with Iran. We're at war with Iran's nuclear program. What we did is we destroyed the Iranian nuclear program. I think we set that program back substantially, and we did it without endangering the lives of the American pilots.
He says the U.S. is not at war with Iran, but at war with Iran's nuclear program. What do you make of that distinction?
That sounds like something a Yale Law School lawyer would argue. You've bombed Iran. You're certainly escalating things. We have tens of thousands of Americans in the Middle East, many service members at ships at sea. They are at risk now. And we know how narrow the Strait of Hormuz is. The Iranians have long threatened to shut down shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, which would affect global energy markets and more. This is a very risky situation for the country.
Your fellow lawmaker from Pennsylvania, Democratic Senator John Fetterman, is supportive of these strikes. He called it the correct move. What would you say to him about that?
I disagree. We have a role in Congress. The American people expect us to have a say on something as important as deciding whether this country goes to war. What's the point of being a senator or a member of Congress if you're not going to do your duty? And our duty is to say something here and be clear that that power lies with us, not the president.
But here we are. So instead of looking backwards, what do you plan to do moving forward? And what is your biggest concern right now?
Well, my concern is the president's going to put us into another regional war that will last for who knows how long in the Middle East. What we should be doing is taking up one of these war powers resolutions to constrain the president's ability to further escalate, for Congress to take back some of that power, so that we are debating this in full view of the American people of whether there is something that we should put American lives on the line for. That debate has not happened at all.
Congressman Chris Deluzio, thank you very much for joining us.